While practicing basic fighter maneuvers, I was on the offensive against the F-22 during dissimilar air combat training. I was closing in on the Raptor from behind and closing rapidly. The call came out over the radio, "Fights on." Normally what happens with the jet in the defensive mode is you put the nose down with full afterburner, spitting out flares and chaff and everything you have in order to escape at maximum instantaneous rate, and then max sustained rate after that. But what I saw the Raptor do was amazing. From being chased, it suddenly spun 180 degrees horizontally. I was still 1 mile behind the Raptor, but suddenly I was face to face with it. The nose authority is so impressive. Being able to turn from hunted to hunter in a split second meant I was facing the Raptor and the pilot was tracking me with his gun. I had no chance. Incredible. Well, welcome back, fellow Model Bench historians, and as always, welcome aboard. On today's episode of Building History, we're working on the Hobbyboss 172nd F-22 Raptor. Please consider subscribing, give me a quick like, and leave a comment below. As always, thank you so much for your continued support. I sincerely appreciate it. But now, let's get back to the model. The F-22 cockpit is still, from what I believe, when I read, considered classified. And the only images that I've seen, supposedly, that have only been released, have been from mock-ups and not an actual cockpit image. So no model company's cockpit is 100% accurate yet. The Hobbyboss approach to this was using a flat panel and just a decal for the instrument screens. I wanted something a little bit more, something to add a little bit of details, specifically since I was planning on building this with the cockpit with the canopy closed in an in-flight condition. So I used some styrene, which I very terribly cut out. It's not straight at all, to make some crude and rudimentary windscreens that I then put the decal instrument panels inside of. Now once it's all painted and closed and it looks decent enough. Could it be better? Absolutely it could be better. However, for just trying something out, I think it turned out reasonably well. Back in 1981, the United States Air Force identified a requirement for an advanced tactical fighter, the ATF, due to the emerging threats of the MiG-29 and the Su-27. A request for proposals was put out, with multiple companies submitting their designs ranging from the typical to the outlandish. Ultimately, in 1986, Lockheed and Northrop were selected to develop a technology demonstrator aircraft, with Northrop submitting the YF-23 and Lockheed the YF-22. Both Lockheed and Northrop were tasked with building and flying two technology demonstrator aircraft, one powered by a Pratt & Whitney engine and the other powered by a General Electric engine. The details inside the cockpit provided by Hobbyboss, there was a lot of details that they put on the seat that are just completely invisible, even if you were to display it with the canopy open. You wouldn't see some things. So it's kind of a mystery why Hobbyboss even included them in the kit at all. The seat, however, is very, very basic. If you are one that cares about such things, I would recommend getting a completely new cockpit set, especially the seat, since it's the most visible thing out there. And the seat at least is known, because we know that part's not classified. It's just an ACES 2 seat. So everyone, you know what those look like. Overall, Outside, I think it looks pretty decent. It looks pretty good. But like I said, once it's actually inside enclosed and I actually get the pilot figure in there, in the seat, blocking up all that, taking up all that real estate in there, you really can't see it in the way I'm planning on having it displayed, which is belly towards the audience, quote unquote. You don't see the cockpit at all. But overall, not too bad. The YF-23 made its first flight on 27th of August, 1990. The first flight of the YF-22 was the 29th of September, 1990. For a great video about the development of the YF-22 and the YF-23, check out the interview with Eric Abell on CW Lemoyne's channel. I'll put a link to that video in the description below. Ultimately, the YF-23 proved itself to be stealthier and faster than the YF-22. However, the YF-22 proved to be more agile with its thrust vectoring engines. In 1991, the YF-22 paired with the Pratt & Whitney F-119 engines was announced the winner, and the Raptor officially entered production. In what could be described as a life lesson for us every day, and I believe the colloquial term would be go big or go home, the YF-22 live-fired test missiles. During the ATF competition, there was never a requirement for either of the airplanes to live-fire missiles. However, the team from Lockheed made sure that the YF-22 did so. The Northrop team at YF-23 never fired a missile from their demonstrator aircraft. Now, I'm not saying that's what won them the competition. It probably wasn't, but you can't deny the fact that actually firing missiles on a test demonstrator aircraft is going to have an impact on the selection team. There were, of course, differences between the YF-22 and the production F-22s, as you can see clearly in their ultimate design and shape. And this was done intentionally. The YF-22 and F-23 programs were always designed as technology demonstrators, not specifically, although acting as a prototype for the later production model. Ultimately, for the F-22, the wing sweep was decreased from 48 to 42 degrees. The vertical stabilizers were moved rearward and decreased in size. The cockpit was then moved forward, and the intakes moved rearward to increase cockpit visibility. The shapes of the wings and stabilizers were also changed to improve aerodynamics, strength, and stealth characteristics. The prime contractor was Lockheed Martin, which manufactures the majority of the airframe and conducts final assembly. Its partner, Boeing, provides additional airframe components and avionics integration. The first EMD, or the Engineering, Manufacturing, and Development F-22, rolled out on April 9, 1997, and first flew on September 7th. This was the first of 9 developmental F-22 models known as Raptor 001. These 9 developmental F-22s were then followed by 8 Production Representative Test Vehicles, or PRTVs, and its first flight occurred on October 12th in 2002. thank you for joining me on this episode as we just broke the surface on the F-22. On next episode, we're going to start messing with the photo edge. I'm going to start failing with the photo edge, and from there we're going to get some of these weapons bays built up, which is really what took me the most time for all of this in the whole course of this build. Thank you so much for watching. Please join me next time as we continue with the F-22 Raptor.